The market out there is still extraordinarily competitive. In fact, if you saw the video last week, you'll know that in April of this year, meaning April of 2020, the average sales price to list price ratio was 102%, meaning that if a home was listed for $1 million, it sold for $1,020,000. Think about that. This is Danny Gould with the Selling Silicon Valley Group. Welcome everyone to another Silicon Valley market snapshot for the third week here in May of 2020. Very special shelter, well, not so special anymore. It's another shelter in place episode of the Silicon Valley snapshot. Still got the full quarantine hair going on. That's why I'm wearing this hat. And oh my gosh, I can't wait to get it cut. I'm getting a little desperate here, thinking about asking my girlfriend to take some scissors to it and just get it cut. But I'm holding out. I'm not that desperate yet, and I'm hoping that I can go see Jacob soon. Jacob's my barber at Crown Barber. Love you, Jacob. You're the man. Enough about Jacob, enough about the hair. Let's get into the data. And before we begin, just remember that the data that we're going to share today is not specific, but it's very broad. It's generalized data. And so if you're looking for data that's specific to the neighborhood that you're living in and or interested in, zip code, neighborhood, area, whatever you have, whatever you want, go ahead and text the word data to the number down below for a unique solution to your unique situation and a unique set of data for your unique situation. Anyways, guys, let's get into the data, shall we? And actually, one bit of news before we head into the data. If you've been watching these videos for any period of time, you'll know that about 60 days ago, in fact, about 64 or 5 days ago, the MLS suspended days on market. The multiple listing service for San Mateo County, Santa Clara County, and San Benito County suspended days on market, meaning that wherever the listing was at that period of time, the days on market froze. So if the home had been on the market on March 18th for, say, 18 days since the beginning of March, the days on market was suspended. So between March 18th and May 18th, or May 16th, or whatever it was, for those 60 days on market was suspended, meaning that it showed 18 days. And so that metric has now been reinstated, and so days on market is now being counted once again. And so I loved sharing the graph or the data about days on market, but it just hasn't been relevant for the last 2 months, because if a home came on the market, say April 1st of this year, and then sold, say, April 30th of this year, it would show that it's sold with the 0 days on market, which, you know, really, I mean, if a buyer has any sort of like clue as to what's going on, they can like very easily research when the home was actually listed for sale, and it doesn't take a degree to figure out, you know, April 1st to April 20th, 20 days. It's basic math, right? So I don't know what I mean, I understand the premise behind it, and I understand the theology behind it, because buyers look at the days on market and they say, well, it's been on the market for 30 days. It's that devalues the property in some way, shape, or form, right? At least in the eyes of some buyers, because, well, if it hasn't sold in 30 days, then my goodness, well, just use merchandise, man. Can't buy a home that's been on the market for 30 days. 30 days, my God. Now, I say that facetiously because in other parts of the country, 30 days is phenomenal. And what we're going to see right here is that the market, the balance in the market here is very similar to what we've seen in actually previous years. But things are just moving a little bit slower. And so I think it's wise, it's prudent for buyers and sellers to understand that in this environment, things are going to take longer to happen, decisions take longer to make, but homes are still selling, and the market out there is still extraordinarily competitive. In fact, if you saw the video last week, you'll know that in April of this year, meaning April of 2020, the average sales price to list price ratio was 102%, meaning that if a home was listed for $1 million, it sold for $1,020,000. Think about that. Let's get into the numbers, folks. You'll see on the screen here, first for Santa Clara County, we had lots of great news, by the way, in Santa Clara County, especially if you're a home seller. San Mateo County, you'll see in a second, but if you look at the data, you'll see that there was well, excuse me, I was on the wrong data chart. There was a drop, 32.7% drop for sale listings between month to date, meaning that between May 1st through May 19th of this year, there was 1445 total units for sale versus 2147 last year, month to date, meaning that there's a 32% drop, 33% drop. And pendings followed suit with a 29% drop. So very, very close, meaning that pendings versus sales, or pendings versus active inventory, the balance is relatively equal, right? So it would mirror or look very similar from a balance perspective to last year, right? To last year's market. And if you were in the market last year as a home buyer or home seller, or were paying attention, you'll know that the market was a very good market. It wasn't crazy that we weren't getting tons of multiple offer situations, but there were still multiple offer situations happening. And having had a pulse, or having a pulse on the market right now, I am seeing like fellow real estate agents who are writing testimonials on Facebook, sending emails out saying, hey, I got 8 offers on a property. 8 offers on a property, having only been on the market for a week and having only shown it virtually and or through one-on-one showings. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to the news, you'll know that shelter in place now allows for residential real estate to be shown privately to buyers one-on-one with an agent there and up to 2 family members walking the property at any given time, obviously with proper PPE being worn. But the bottom line is that these homes are being sold and going pending at roughly the amount of pending sales relative to the amount of inventory is relatively equal. And so that should be good news for you if you are a home seller in today's market, because just a few weeks ago we were crying doomsday. And if anything, and if you watched my video last week, you'll know that it was a call to action. Like, the market's good right now. We don't know what the fallout's going to be in 2 to 3 months from now. Or 3 to 6 months from now, or 6 to 12 months from now. The government is printing money, hand over fist, and they're they're literally printing $1 million per second. You know that? Literally printing $1 million per second to keep up with this, to keep up with the stimulus. And so eventually, where does that leave America? Where does that leave you as a consumer or as a home seller? We don't know. We don't know. And so the market conditions right now are surprisingly good given the circumstances, I would say. And so my suggestion is, if you're a home seller and you are planning on selling in the next 12 months, don't stick around and roll the dice, because you're a riverboat gambler if you do, and God bless you, because that's you got more guts than I do, because I'd be putting it on the market today. And okay, so another thing that's worth looking at, right, is the current month versus previous month to date, meaning that between the 1st of May and the 19th of May of this year versus the 1st of April versus the 19th of April of this same year, right, we are up 100% in terms of inventory, right, for sale listings, and up 88% in terms of pending sales. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that there is a lot more confidence, and this shouldn't be surprising, but there's a lot more confidence on both sides of the spectrum right now, because we've basically doubled both our sales and pendings between the 1st and the 19th. Now, obviously, at the beginning of April of this year, we were like fresh into shelter in place, and there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of instability, and so people weren't necessarily going to be, going out and shopping for homes or putting their homes on the market. Now, what this is telling us, what this data should tell you more than anything else, is that a couple things. Number one, consumer confidence is back, right? It may not be back in the same capacity that it was pre-COVID-19, but it's definitely still there. And it's definitely worth noting that that's the case. The other thing too is that sellers are putting their homes on the market. And I talked about this in previous snapshots, is that there's some sellers out there who may not want to put their home on the market because they're uncertain as to what's going on, and they're not sure if the market's going down. The reality is that there are a lot of misinformed people out there who are literally thinking that real estate's depreciating by 20% as we speak. Yet last month we had 102 sales price to list price ratio. So there's some misinformation out there that's keeping inventory off the market right now. I would expect inventory to rise even more. Does demand follow suit and follow that inventory? Who knows? But the San Mateo market could give us a little bit of insight into whether or not that's going to happen. Now, if you're looking at the San Mateo data right here, you'll see that for sale inventory month to date is down 11% versus pendings, which are down 37%. So that's a big discrepancy, and this isn't the first time that we've seen that. In fact, last week we saw a very similar discrepancy delta between inventory and pendings, meaning that relative to last year, there's definitely less demand in comparison to the supply. And so when we're looking at that and we're saying, well, what does that mean for you if you're a home seller? Well, it means that right now you have more competition and less demand. Well, you don't have more competition relative to last year, but you have more competition relative to the amount of demand, right? And that's really worth noting, because I don't know if this is going to get any better. This is a trend that we've seen for a few weeks now, and so I would expect this trend to continue. Now remember, guys, this is what I'm talking about, is that these are very general pieces of information. It very well could be that the specific area, neighborhood that you're looking, zip code that you're looking at, has a slightly different story than this. In fact, I almost guarantee you that it's a different story than this, because this is the average, right? This is the average for the entire county, and we're talking, ranging from Redwood City to Atherton to Burlingame. I mean, there's so many different markets, and the seasonality, the discrepancies between the markets are worth noting, and you're not going to get the information that you need by looking at this video. You're going to get the information that you need by texting data to the number down below and making sure that we get you a unique data analysis for your unique situation. So the stats for this month versus last month, right? The current versus previous month to date, we're seeing that for sale is up 85% in San Mateo County versus pendings up 75%. So good, that's really good. That's good to know. And what that tells us, right, is that even at the beginning of April, and we know this because we've been looking at the data, but even at the beginning of April, we were seeing situations where the pending sales were already starting to trail or lag behind the active inventory. And that's been exacerbated a little bit by shelter in place. And again, the concept of this trickle-down theory, which I invite you to look at previous videos that discuss this trickle-down theory, but basically it's the idea that whatever happens in San Mateo County, in the Mid-Peninsula, and even as far north as San Francisco, all the trends and things that we see up north eventually tend to trickle down to South County, to Santa Clara, Willow Glen, Campbell, all the way down through South San Jose, Morgan Hill, Gilroy, San Benito County, etc. And even in the parts of Santa Cruz too, but those markets behave a little bit more independently to us than the other markets that I just mentioned. So anyways, guys, lots of fascinating things here. What's the takeaway? If you're a home seller or a home buyer, if you're a home seller in today's market, the takeaway should be is that regardless of what area you're in, I would highly consider moving sooner rather than later and being as proactive as you possibly can. I've for the last 3 weeks now, I have 8 listings signed right now. My team has 8 listings signed. And finally we got 3 of them to pull the trigger this week, and I know that we're gonna have some more coming on in the next couple weeks. And everything, guys, I'm not telling you anything different than I'm telling the clients that I'm currently working with, because these are facts. This is data, and of course there's many different ways to interpret, but the reality is that the data isn't lying. The market's in decent shape right now if you're a home seller. Now, if you're a home buyer, what should you do, right? And I get this question all the time, and I think for a home buyer, the decision is a little bit more complex, right, as to whether to pull the trigger now or to pull the trigger later. The reality is that right now the interest rates are good, and while there is definitely competition out there, and relative to the amount of inventory, seemingly similar competition out there. We know that there is reduced competition out there just because there's not as many loan products available to buyers out there, and a significant amount of Silicon Valley home buyers are sitting this one out due to inability to qualify. But for the ones that are qualified, they're even more qualified. And so there's all these different things to consider. But truthfully, you know, with uncertainty, with doubt, there's always opportunities out there, and I see them every single day just looking on the MLS. I mean, obviously, if you want the shiny house with the you know, the brass, you know, the golden doorknobs with the golden toilet, right? All the buyers want that, right? And you're gonna still pay, you know, a very considerably high price for all those listings. And you know, I have a lot of clients right now looking at new construction, and right now is the perfect time to buy new construction because the builders are in a panic, and because they see what's going on with the economy, and they just want to move their inventory. And so they're definitely reducing their prices. They're definitely they're definitely incentivizing the home buyers to come through the door. But you know, all that aside, the message or the point that I want to drive home today is that with uncertainty, there is opportunity. And to shun the idea or the possibility of opportunity away because you want to sit here and wait to see whether or not there's a deal coming along in the next 6 to 12 months, well, you know, if you're patient and you're willing to take that risk, or not really risk, but if you're willing to gamble that way, then mazel tov, do it, you know. But otherwise, I would suggest that you be proactive and see whether or not there's opportunities out there. And you know, again, guys, we're here to provide all this information for you. And you know, if you're a home buyer or seller in today's market, and you're really wondering, well, should I do this? Should I not? But let's talk about it. So text the word analysis to the number down below. We'll get you a unique solution to your unique situation, and make sure that you know, maybe this isn't the right time for you, or maybe it is, you know. And so, but that really, you know, it takes two to kind of like talk that out and figure out whether or not it's the right time. And so that's all I got for you guys. That's all I got today. I'm super excited, honestly. This is the market is shaping up to, at least for the foreseeable future, be active, you know, and it's definitely a fun time to be a realtor and to be out here selling Silicon Valley. So anyways, guys, this is Danny Gould with the Selling Silicon Valley Group. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch all of you in the next video.